What is up, folks? Welcome to the latest episode of the Harold McBasketball Show. I'm your gracious host, as always, Harold McBasketball, along with my co-host, I Know Ball, Paul. Paul, we're back for the new season. We're about a month away, a month and a half away from the start of the NBA season. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's been a while. We were on a little hiatus. I mean, there wasn't much basketball to discuss. The Olympic Games happened. That was a fun time, but ultimately we took a bit of a break. But I think we're ready to get back into the swing of things with the new NBA season. We'll be drafting our fantasy team soon enough. And yeah, it's time to start churning out the content again. And it's my favorite part where we do the predictions and we try to kind of guess where teams will fall, how players will do. So let's get it.
Yeah, I agree. Like the preseason content is always the best. This is when all the parts kind of fall into place. Free agency's wrapped up, the rookies have been drafted, and now it's all just speculation. Are certain teams gonna get better from where they were last year? Are certain fringe teams gonna, maybe fall out of the playoff picture? What's gonna happen with some of these older teams who have been struggling as of lately? Who knows? It's a fresh year. So this is where we get to kind of speculate on all of it. We are going to be starting with the East today, um, as we should. Another shout out to our Boston Celtics, who just won the championship this last season. We are still riding the high of that. And if we into it, we should start right there. We should just start with the Boston Celtics. I assume they're 1-1 for you. They're also 1-1 for me. Is there anything else to say about it?
No, yeah, your mic may have been unplugged, Harry.
Yeah, we're good. We're back.
Okay, we're back. Yeah, yeah, the Celtics are my one. I put together kind of a standings, but I also kind of did a general tier list. There are teams that are very close, but the Celtics are kind of alone in that first tier. I think they'll hit 60 wins again. They truly stand alone as the most dominant team in the East after I think beating out the Knicks by like 14 games for the number one seed last year. So
Yeah, it wasn't even close last year. Like I kind of have mine set up in tiers, and right now the Celtics are easily in a tier of their own. They dominated last year, regular season and playoffs. Nothing has changed. The roster is pretty much exactly the same. We just handed out some extensions to some of our guys to keep them around, keep them paid. So it seems like this team is going to be around for at least the next couple of years. So I think we can kind of move on after that. I think everyone knows Celtics 1-1. I think the other teams get a lot more interesting, but I think this is an easy pick, and we've already said so much about the Celtics that I'm totally down just to keep it moving and go into the second team.
let's keep it moving. Yeah, there's not too much to talk about, but yeah,
Oh,
let's
we
go to
love
number
them.
two. Who is your
All
number
right.
two?
I already know yours. You spoiled it for me in advance, I think, unless things have changed.
Yeah, I
Um,
kind of just forgot I had a different number two.
Thank God, because that was gonna be a crazy take.
Their
My
number
number my number two right now is, and this is only I've waffled on. They're like two teams that I think are like neck and neck here, for my selection. But since we're just essentially doing regular season rankings, like these aren't true power rankings. These are like how do we think the final standings are gonna end. I have the Knicks there because I think the Knicks just have like a very complete roster. They were the two seed last year. They only got better by adding Mikal Bridges. Julius Randle is healthy now. Podcast listeners know that we're not the biggest Julius Randle fan, so it's like, does that help them? It's like, I don't know, but I think this team is deep enough now to where it doesn't hurt having Randle back, and the Mikal Bridges addition just makes their defense that much better. It gives them another just lengthy defender, 3-point shooter on the wing who Brunson can cook for. And I think they've just figured out the new meta. I think a great meta right now, they see a lot of teams trying to replicate right now, which is like one really good on-ball player and then surround them with really good 3-point shooting defensive players. And I think the Knicks have just replicated that the best, other than the Celtics, who have done it with two superstars, Kristaps and Drew. So I've got the Knicks number two right now.
Honestly, the Knicks were kind of a team that I had falling just a little bit. I don't think it's going to be much of a fall, but they hit 50 games last year. I think they'll get close to that again this year. Um, I just wonder they lost Hartenstein and Bojan Bogdanovic. Obviously, they added
Bojan was terrible.
Bojan
Bojan was
Hartenstein.
worthless.
He was worthless. I think he got injured pretty quickly, and he was not very good. But Hartenstein, on the other hand, I think was a major reason that they were so successful and had the playoff run. Um, the pick and roll between him and Brunson, his ability to defend the rim. I think people really still don't understand how good of a defender Hartenstein is. Um,
He got
and
that huge contract. He's making like $30 million a year. So maybe the casual fans don't know it, but like certainly the
OKC
front
knows.
offices do. Yeah.
No, and I think people started to realize how valuable of a big man he is. Mitchell Robinson's going to be back in the mix. Obviously, Julius Randle is back, but I'm not super keen on that front court. Um, I think Dante DiVincenzo finding a role is huge, and I loved his contributions. Hart, I think Mikal Bridges is going to be awesome, but I think they will fall a little, or more so, some other teams I think will kind of surpass them in the regular season rankings. I think they'll still be dangerous come playoffs, but um, I think Julius Randle is kind of going to throw a wrench into their system, and their front court depth. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have a person to do the pick and rolls with as nicely as Hartenstein fit there with Brunson. So that's kind of my take. I still think they'll push 50 wins, maybe a few under. I don't know.
Interesting. Interesting. They were almost at 60 last year. Oh, that's a lie. They're at 50 exactly last
They
year.
hit
Big
50.
fall off between Celtics and Knicks. I misread that. But it's an interesting thing because if you ask me, like, if I was the Knicks, like, would I straight up rather have Julius Randle or Hardenstein? I think I'd rather have Hardenstein. He's just a better fit for the team. They really don't need Julius Randle's inefficient shot creation that he brings to the table. But I still think this team is like very complete, very deep. And when we're talking regular season standings, I just think they have an edge as far as health goes. Like they just have like a bunch of Iron Men out there where it's like Brunson seems to play every game. Mikal Bridges is like known to be the guy who just like plays the most in the league. He is never hurt. DiVincenzo I really like. And I've got to be forgetting like some other really interesting pieces they have too
Yeah,
on that team.
OG,
They're
they
quite
added
deep.
OG.
Yeah, OG. We haven't even mentioned OG yet. OG's awesome. He actually has had some injury struggles, but I think they're just like so deep at those forward positions that like if Randall gets hurt, that's fine. They still have McHale and OG. If OG gets hurt, then they've got Randall and McHale. So I feel like because they're gonna be like so healthy and so deep that they should be able to get a lot of wins this year. And I think they should be able to push higher than 50 this year.
Yeah. I have them kind of in my tier two. I think they'll for sure end up being a top five seed. I think I just kind of had some hot takes of some teams that I think will finish ahead of them. And on my list, they are fifth. I have them as
Ooh,
far down as five.
spicy, spicy New York hater over here.
I'm a
Our New
Julius
York fans are
Randle.
gonna be pissed. Our New York fans are gonna be pissed.
I'm sorry, New Yorkers.
No, don't apologize to them. They're scumbags. All right, who's your two? Who do you have?
So my two is the 76ers. I
Okay.
lied to you and said the Pacers. I not looked at my list. I've forgotten that. I think the 76ers adding Paul George turns them into kind of a quasi superpower in the East. And they added Eric Gordon, Caleb Martin, Yabusele, the dancing bear, one of my favorite players, and
Yeah,
Andre.
what an addition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, outside of Paul George, the not crazy additions. I think Caleb Martin could be um, a decent addition. They lost Buddy Hield, Melton, Paul Reed, Batum.
Yeah,
So
probably fine. Tobias
probably fine.
also.
Essentially, they added Paul George, and I think that is enough with Maxey taking another step. I like Nick Nurse. I think they'll be a very good regular season team, barring Paul George and Joel Embiid not.
Yeah, that's my issue. I think power ranking is wise. I'd be like, I agree. I think they're like a top
Yeah,
three team. But it's like it just feels like it's wishful thinking that they stay healthy. And like you saw last year, the team just fell apart when Embiid got hurt. They essentially went from the second seed like down to like what, like seventh seed. Like
yeah.
they just like completely imploded without him. Obviously, the idea with getting Paul George is like you hope that they don't implode as badly. You're not banking on Tobias be your second guy. You've got a far better player in Paul George, but he's also a little bit older, also a little bit injury prone. So I could definitely see them having a season where it's like it feels like at least one of those guys are hurt at all times. So we'll have to see if they can put together a fully healthy season. Like I'd probably have them at two,
Yeah.
but not what I'm expecting. So I actually have them at four. And I do have like essentially like a mini tier of like two teams at 3 and 4 where I'm like, when healthy, these are like the second and third best teams, but they're just like a little bit older. I'm not sure they're going to stay healthy for the entire season.
That's fair, and I forgot they lost Tobias Harris as well. That's notable. Um, yeah,
Sixers fans are stoked though. Sixers fans love to see Tobias gone. He could not have been gone soon enough. Like hell of an upgrade going from Tobias to Paul George.
yeah. I think Paul George is going to be a great fit. I think the injury
Me too.
concerns are super valid. But I think maybe with a third star in the mix, there's kind of less weight on Embiid's shoulders. Um, vice versa with Paul George. Maxey, he's able to play the entire season usually. So I guess I'm betting on them being healthy, but we agree. I think that power rankings wise, they're probably top three. But yeah, in the regular season, I think they could, fall depending on health, no doubt.
Are you gonna move them, or are you keeping them at two in your final standings?
It's just I just have like a whole group of teams that I think are going to be close to 50 wins. I think I'll keep the Sixers there. I think I'm going to say, hey, positive season. I think Yabusele is a good luck charm, and he
For
will
sure.
build them to 50 plus wins.
Yeah, and like if you look at the standings last year, seeds, 2 through 8, it's like the Knicks were leading with 50 wins. Heat had the eighth seed with 46 wins. So it's like a 4 game difference. So even with like the Sixers meltdown, they're still 3 games away from the second seed. So I actually like that pick. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, my 1 through 8 is within like 6 or 7 games. It's the Celtics really do stand alone, and then there's a bit of a drop off. But it was tough, um, kind of organizing these teams, and I think I kind of did mix power rankings with regular season standings.
I
Like,
and I'm fine with that idea a little too.
yeah,
And I just have like some inherent bias in here where I'm like, I just don't like this team, so it goes lower. This team I like better, it goes higher. So this is not an exact science. There's a lot of vibes and aura that gets taken into account with a list like this. So I actually like the Sixers there.
all right.
Yeah, let's go on to 3 now. All right. Well, this is where we know you have the Pacers. So
This is
wanna
where I have
wanna
to,
cook, wanna sell me on the Pacers right now.
man, they're just I think a super energetic young team. They have like a nice mix of veterans now with Pascal. Obviously, they have some guys like TJ McConnell. Um, I just think it's an awesome roster. I think I love Benedict Mathurin. He'll be back in the rotation. I went down the Isaiah Jackson rabbit hole. I think he's going to have a great third season.
Yeah.
Um, Trust me, he's a per 36 beast. He just
All
hasn't
right,
found the
dude.
minutes. I think with like I forget who they got rid of, like Jalen Smith maybe. I don't think he was getting many minutes, but
Yeah, yeah. He's gone. I forget where he is.
I think Isaiah Jackson can find 20 minutes. I always do this to myself. He's not going to be that great, but like that's a player. I love Aaron
Yeah.
Nesmith. I think Aaron Nesmith is like one of the most efficient 3-and-D wings.
He was so good in the playoffs last year. He was electric against the Celtics. And we were like, shit, should we have kept this guy? This guy looks
Awesome,
incredible. Just like
man.
super aggressive on defense, great shooter. Just like, I don't know, just way more aggressive than he had looked on the Celtics. Granted, like, he was a lot younger on the Celtics. We probably traded him after his second year or something like that. But he's an aggressive player on offense.
And he's 25 years old now. He's in his prime. Benedict Mathurin, I think it's his third season. They have kind of these guys that are entering their prime years. Obviously, Halliburton being the main one. Obi Toppin, we both like. I think, was kind of still underutilized last year. Super efficient shooter and an amazing transition guy. So essentially, I just kind of love all their pieces and how they fit together. I think they have that balance of young, old. They've got the superstars, they've got the role players, and this is just I think a regular season. And I think a team that I could see definitely making the Eastern Conference Finals again.
Yeah, this Missoula said that the Pacers were the hardest team they played in the playoffs, which was a little bit disrespectful to some of the teams they were playing, especially the Mavs, I would say. But they did play hard. It's like they should have taken 2 of those games. It should have been a way more competitive series than it was. We just really clutched up 2 of the games. They kind of blew those games. But yeah, this is a legit team. And it's like I was kind of tempted to put them in like the Knicks tier where I'm like, this team is very young. It seems like it's going to be, although they do have good veterans, like Pascal was a great addition, but like they're young, they're very consistent, they're very healthy, and the chemistry is amazing. So I was tempted to put them in that Knicks tier. But I kind of put like a space in between. I was like, I don't know if they're quite there yet. I'm gonna pay homage to teams like the Sixers alike, and put them like kind of right below that tier. But I do think they're interesting, and it's like kind of just like what separated for me is like I love Halliburton. I think he's great, but I do think Brunson's like slightly in a higher tier. So I was like, I'm gonna give the nod to the Knicks over them.
I think Halliburton is a better player than Jalen
It's
Brown.
an interesting thing because like it's like an eyeball test thing where it's like watching Halliburton with like the passing, the efficiency. It's like wow, like And he's obviously like the better prospect than Brunson was, but like I don't know, man. Brunson just like gets the job done. He just like cannot be stopped, gets to the line when he wants to. Crazy efficient, sick mid-range shot.
Of course.
He's like he's more explosive on offense, which I think is huge for what they're trying to do. But we'll see though. I do think that could be very close between Pacers Knicks.
I do think the Pacers are gonna establish themselves as like really a dominant team, and they kind of already were a very good team, but I think they'll put themselves in like the top teams in the East. Um, and yeah, like Halliburton is I think 25 now. Like he is entering his best years. Pascal's 30, so this is their time to shine, and I think we'll see that. But that's
Yeah,
the
we'll see. I like them, but I'm going to leave them at where they're at in my list. Um, should I tell you where they're on my list right now, or should we just like wait till we get to them?
Oh yeah, sure. You can sneak
I
peek.
I've got them at five, so like this will kind of spoil some things, but like essentially my next tier that I'll get into now is like my teams that I view as like older teams, power rankings wise, like they would be way higher, but because of potential injury concerns, I've kind of docked them a little bit, put them beneath the Knicks. But at the third team, I have the Bucks. I think the Bucks are as good as ever, and I think they're kind of getting forgotten about right now because they flamed down the playoffs. But did people kind of forget, but like Giannis didn't even play in the playoffs. Like we really did not get to like fully see this team last year. First team with Lillard, they fired their coach after like 30 games. Very weird season, and they really just didn't get to play it out. But like, had Giannis been healthy, this team could have made a run to the Eastern Conference Finals. And at that point, like we'd be pretty easily putting the Bucks as the second best team yet again. So I got them slotted at third just because Lillard is a little bit older, tends to get hurt. Brook Lopez, I don't know what to expect. He's like 38 now, probably. He is so old. Middleton's always hurt. Giannis is starting to pick up some injuries now and then. So like the injury concerns are there, which is why I don't have them second for regular season standings. But I do think they're the second best team in the East right now. So I've got them at third right now. I think they're gonna be sick this year.
I disagree. I think the Bucks are a little bit out of their best years. I mean, that's maybe obvious, but obviously they have Giannis and Damian Lillard. If those guys are healthy, this team can be the best in the East. I think they could compete with the Celtics, but I just think their depth is so bad. I hate Doc Rivers.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, hitting Doc Rivers is totally fine.
But yeah, like you said, I mean, yeah, Brook regressed hard last season. He is no longer the player that he once was. Middleton kind of had a decent year considering he was injured the year prior, but
Yeah,
he's a 15 point per game scorer.
very good in the playoffs though. As brief as that stretch was,
Say it again.
he was very good in the playoffs,
Uh,
albeit it was brief, but he showed some signs of life that he still got it a little bit. So that was a good extra sell for me.
yeah, and I don't think he's completely washed. I think Brook Lopez at this point might be more or less washed. There might be some minutes
Very well
left
could
with
be.
him. But Middleton, I think, kind of he's in that Klay Thompson realm where he had some tough years with injuries, and I think he's gonna have a little bit of a bounce back before eventually fading into the nether. But yeah,
Yeah.
they go ahead.
No, those are all good points, but sticking with it, I'm betting on Giannis. I think he's still probably the best player in the East. So fuck it, Giannis. Put in the Bucks at three. I don't care.
They added Gary Trent, who I think was an awesome ad. They lost him
Yep.
really easily.
Yep. They need that shooting.
But their depth. They added Torian Prince, who's someone I like, but like realistically, he's like an eighth or ninth best player on a good team. So
It does feel like they could use a trade to get a backup center who could potentially replace Brook at some point in the season, but I have faith that they'll figure something like that out. I feel like they haven't traded. I mean, I know they lost some picks in the Lillard deal, but I think they still have some ammo in the war chest to go and get another player. Or like they don't need to be great, just like I don't know. Like talk to the Hawks, see if you can get like a Kongwu or something. They don't even play them.
But yeah, I like because like yeah, Damian Lillard, awesome. Giannis, awesome. I'm kind of like Brook Lopez. I think Middleton, he's like okay, but like what is he averaging more than 15 points? I don't know. And then it's like really not much. I mean, Gary Trent could be interesting, but I do not have faith in Pat Connaughton. Bobby Portis, I guess, is decent.
Good role player.
There's nothing else after that though. Like they really don't have much after like five. Okay, I mean, a great top two, three and four. Okay, but that after that, it is miserable. So
I have faith. I have faith. I think depth is very important, but I don't know. Sometimes I think it can be like slightly blown out of proportion. Because I feel like we did that to the max with like the Mavs last year, where like the Mavs don't have enough depth. Like, but and it's like, all right, it doesn't matter because like Kyrie and Luka are just gonna score 40. So who cares about their depth? And I think the Bucks could be in a similar boat where it's like if Giannis and Lillard are healthy, they'll be just fine.
Yeah, they do fall to 6 on my power rankings. I think I am kind of a Bucks doomer, but at the same time, I realize if things go well, the potential is there. But I just tend to think this locker room is maybe a bit toxic. I'm not a fan of Doc Rivers, and I think their depth is just not attractive. I don't think this team is going to be a good regular season team, and past couple of years they haven't been a great playoff team. So I don't see them making the conference finals, to be honest, which is
We
crazy because last
yeah.
offseason I thought they were the second best team, arguably the first. I might have had them first.
We shall see. I am tempted to revise my list and like maybe put the Sixers above them because I do think you're right that like the Sixers probably have the better depth and like the more reasonable roster construction. Fuck it, this is my list, and we said we're allowed to persuade each other. I will dock the Bucks to 4. I'm gonna move up to Sixers.
Yeah, you're like the champion of old teams to the curb. I mean, Damian Lillard
Yeah, I
35.
am. I do hate old teams. But, like I don't think like the Bucks and Sixers are quite like that old yet. You know, like when I'm talking like old teams, it's like everybody's old on their team. Like Giannis not that old yet. Like the Sixers, like Embiid, he's probably older than like his age at this point, but like not that old. I'm very I'm a big doomer on teams where it's like 42-year-old LeBron, 37-year-old Curry, like those kind of teams. I'm like, no, no. If you're the second you're on the wrong side of 35, I'm out.
I think Damian Lillard is now pushing. I think he might be 35, but
He he might
Giannis
be, but
30.
yeah, I mean more so for like the best player on your team.
Yeah.
Because Paul George is also like 36, but I'm like it's fine because Embiid and Maxey are young, so like I'm not gonna knock them for having like one good old player. But if you only have good old players, I'm like no, teams are gonna run circles around you guys. All
But
right, cool. Well, fuck it. That was my Bucks take. I'm gonna bump Sixers up to 3. We already talked about them. Who is your third team? I guess you already gave right. Pacers was your
yeah,
third team. So give me
Celtics,
your
Sixers,
fourth team
Pacers.
then. Yeah, who's your fourth?
My fourth team might be a bit of a hot take. I think the
Just say the Hawks and
Cavaliers.
strangle you. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
It's the Cavs, who hired one of the head coaches. I love Kenny Atkinson, who had a who he was the head coach of that Nets season that I'm very proud of. That I kind of predicted that they would be a playoff team.
The D'Lo year, a
The deal
classic.
is. But Kenny Atkinson is, I think he's been kind of bouncing around as an assistant coach, um, but he's kind of renowned for his offense. I'm not going to pretend like I know all the X's and O's. I just think it's a decent signing, and it kind of makes me a bit more excited. Um, but yeah, I think the Cavs could definitely use a bit of an offensive minded coach. We see how they kind of struggled on that end, but they're a super talented roster. I think Mobley finally showed a bit of improvement in shooting. Um, Not much, but there was some three balls and not at an inefficient clip. So that was good. Garland, I think, could have a bounce back year, and I think Donovan Mitchell is still one of the most underrated superstars of this league. I mean, yeah, no, this roster is deep, and I think with a new coach that they could kind of have a nice bounce back year.
Yeah, what I say about the Cavs is like they can go toe to toe with any team in a guy off, where it feels like they've just got like guys on guys when you're like they've got Mitchell at point guard, Garland shooting guard, maybe it's flip, take your pick, they're both guards. And then like Mobley power forward, Allen at center, plug in whoever you want at small forward, maybe it's Struce. That's like 4 fringe all-star players they have right there, which is pretty incredible. 2 fringe defensive player of the year candidates at power forward and center. The roster is absolutely stacked. With that said, I do have them like my lower tier. So it's like my second tier is kind of like these older teams that I think of like top end talent, Bucks and Sixers. My lower tier are essentially teams I've got marked as they're young, not a ton of injury concerns. So like I do think their guys are going to play a lot of games. But kind of like the big mark I have on this tier is like they either like lack top tier talent or they lack chemistry. The Cavs don't lack the talent. Like the talent is incredible in this team, but I feel like the chemistry's always been like a big struggle for them. It's always like either Mitchell or Garland goes off. It feels like one of them needs to be hurt or really for Garland in particular. Like it feels like Mitchell needs to be hurt for him to like actually put up the numbers we know he can. And you can kind of say similar things about Allen and Mobley. It's like they've got like four really good players, but it almost feels like two different teams where it's like, should the team just be, Mobley and Mitchell? Should the team just be Garland and Allen? I don't know. I feel like they've always really struggled to put those pieces together and have them play the way they want to and play efficiently. So that's like where my questions come through. So I've got them a little bit lower, but they've got all the talent to be a top four team in the East. It's like I just like haven't seen them put it together. Don't know if there's gonna be the year that they do it.
Yeah, no, no, everything you said is true, and I think I'm just weirdly betting on the fact that their offense kind of gets figured out a little bit more under Kenny Atkinson, but that is kind of a shot in the dark. Like I don't know the ins and out of his offense. I just have heard and remember that Nets season where they were such an exciting offense. I believe Jarrett Allen was part of that team. Um,
Oh yeah, very true.
I wonder if they make a trade. I've seen some fun trade ideas involving Garland and Jimmy Butler. I think that could be funny, but
Yeah, it would be kind of selling their future. It's also one of those things where it's like I feel like I've also done a good amount of hating on like two guard teams, so like why not hate on it here? I feel like it doesn't really work. I feel like teams just shred them on the defense, and it's like yeah, it's like maybe they're in a better spot to do it with Allen and Mobley, but threes are so prolific at this point that you know teams can just get Garland switched onto Jason Tatum, and Jason Tatum can pull a three over him without even having to get near Mobley or Allen. It's like I do feel like that's a concern if there was like a good trade out there for them to move Garland for a potential, all-star caliber small forward. I would consider something like that, but ideally they wouldn't be like 38 years old or however old Jimmy Butler is.
I think he is 37, 38. So
God.
I agree. They would kind of be selling their future. I think Garland is on kind of a long-term, not horrible deal, probably like
Yeah.
30.
Yeah. And they do have Mitchell locked up now, so like they don't have the concern where they kind of need Garland as a backup plan essentially if Mitchell leaves in free agency. Like Mitchell is now locked up, assuming he doesn't demand a trade at some point. But I think he does. Yeah, I'm not sure that he planned on being in Ohio, but I think he does really like the roster that's been constructed. It is a very talented team. So I think he's at least going to be there, for the next couple of years. So yeah, they kind of need to figure out how the pieces fit around Mitchell now that he's locked up in the long term. So we'll see what they do this year.
Yeah, they are in kind of a precarious spot, but I think sometimes it's good to say Donovan Mitchell is a star in this league. Like this dude has dropped 70 plus 71 points, I think, last year. Jared Allen is, I think, 25 years old. Darius Garland's probably like 23, 24. Evan Mobley's 23. Like this team is young and mega talented. They just haven't figured it out. And maybe it'll take a trade, but if this thing clicks, and I mean, they've shown that they can compete at a very high level. Um, this is still one of the great teams in the East, and I think one that still has loads of potential. And I still love Evan Mobley. I think
Me
he
too.
showed some improvement, and it's like, all right, this guy is 23. I think he just turned 23. So
Yeah, in theory, Mobley and Garland should still be getting better. So this team shouldn't be getting any worse than they were last year, and they were the fourth seed last year. So it's like it kind of is fair to bet again that they end up at four. I guess like the question is like, are other teams just going to do better than 50 wins? Because there was like a pretty big fall from the Celtics last year. I kind of expect some of these teams in the mix to, push for like mid 50 wins, maybe and get closer to 60. At least a couple of them. So we'll see with that. But yeah, no, I do think the Cavs are good. I'm gonna fire through my next couple because we've kind of like already talked about some of them. So it's like I had essentially like after Sixers and Bucks, my fifth team was the Pacers, who you had at three, and then the Cavs I had at six. So I've got the Pacers above the Cavs. You did too, so I think that's fair. I just also had the Bucks above them. I guess that's the difference maker there. Bucks and Knicks.
yeah, we had the same top six teams, granted in kind of a different order there.
Yeah, because who's because what is it for you then? Is it five is Knicks, six is Bucks? Is that how you did it?
Exactly. Yeah. Um, Celtics, obviously, I think runaway first seed. I think Sixers, I'm confident will be two, but Pacers and Sixers, I think 50 plus wins. And then Cavs, Knicks, and Bucks, I'm like nearing 50 wins. But yeah, ultimately I went Cavs, then Knicks, then Bucks, who I think will probably end up being sub 50, but we shall
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, you're persuading me on the Bucks. Like I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. It's a good point. It's a good point. The depth is kind of shit, and they are old. And I do take issue with old teams get injured. So
Well,
we'll see though. I'm gonna keep betting on Giannis's abilities, but You're right that they might be a team that is due for like a, a short reset where they essentially like try to get younger, shed some of the older talent, be not as good for a year or two. But we'll see. We've already talked about the Bucks. Let's part two of this talk about the rest of our teams. These are the top six teams in the East, so I think we talked about them a little bit more. Than we're going to talk about some of the worst teams. We get to like the mid tier and then like the trash tier. So yeah, we'll hit those in part two.
Yeah, we'll have to debate who the worst team is again.
Yes, absolutely,
Which I was
absolutely.
right about, was I not?
You were. I was checking that. Yes, the Wizards were better than the Pistons by one game, but that was bullshit. I think. I
I
think
know.
the Pistons were still better. I don't care about the record.
All right, we'll be right back.
All right, we are getting into part two now. Um, we've already ran through our top six teams. Luckily, they're all the same, so essentially clean slate starting now as we talk about essentially the play-in tournament now, starting with the seventh seed, going through there until the end. To kick it off, I'm kind of interested to hear actually you start. I'm curious who you have here at seven.
I think you know who I have at seven.
Is
I mean,
this where you have Atlanta?
this is where I have Atlanta.
Fuck you.
I am choosing to like them more than maybe.
I I will say I do like Atlanta more than these other teams, just like objectively. Um, so I'm kind of with you there. I just don't think so.
Yeah, this is my heart's pick. I feel like every year I kind of go one team with my heart, and they work out sometimes. So I have them at the seven seed. It's not too crazy, but
For sure.
it's tough because honestly, I think the DeJounte Murray trade, they didn't get much return there. Like they got Larry Nance and like Dyson
Yeah,
Daniels.
no. They pulled the plug. They yeah, no. His value essentially dissipated after they traded for him.
And yeah, I wish they had maybe some role players that I could get behind. But alas, they don't. I mean, I think Dyson Daniels could maybe like get in the rotation. I think he's an interesting fit next to Trae Young, but he hasn't proven that he can score basically at an NBA level. So
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Um, but I'm a huge Jalen Johnson fan. I think he's going to take yet another big step in his third year, I believe. Um,
Want to make a hot take on him? Do you think he's gonna be an all-star? Think it's
uh,
possible?
I don't know. I'd have to think of who comes. I don't think he'll be an all-star, to be honest.
Boo,
I think,
coward.
yeah, I think he's gonna not, probably score around 20 points a game, but probably maybe more in the 18, 19 range. And I imagine there's just more talented forwards, but I'd have to look at
Yeah.
the list.
I can see there being a debate for like a final all-star spot and like it goes to like Siakam over, Jalen Johnson. It's tough for these younger guys, they kind of need to be snubbed one year before actually making it.
Yeah, and I think he's 21 years old, so he's still quite young.
Yep.
But we saw a huge leap last year. Um, I'm not going to rant too hard about Jalen Johnson, but major improvements last year, up to like 16 points, I think. Grabs boards at a super high rate, and he's just kind of that quintessential. I mean, he's not awesome at shooting threes, but amazing in transition and kind of someone that Trae Young I think really likes to play alongside of. He's a bit reminiscent of John Collins, but a bit better.
I was literally about to say that. He's really like John Collins, but John Collins was good. Great rebounder, hyper athletic. But like way better like the ball in his hands, whereas like John Collins like was that power forward, but like couldn't really do anything with the ball. Like he was really just there for lobs, pick and roll, things like that. Whereas like Jalen Johnson can like cook in transition with the ball in his hands. You're right, he's not a great shooter, but he is a good scorer though, even without being a good shooter. And he's so young now to where if he does figure out the jump shot at some point, like that's what would put him into the all-star conversation.
And yeah, the jump shooting is not abysmal. I think he shoots like 32 or something. It's like
Yeah, it's like if you can get up like a couple of percentage points, if you can get up to 35, like that's good enough. Yeah, you're totally right. Like Jalen Johnson, I love Trey Young, I love. Um, I love Okongwu. I just wish he started. I think Okongwu is so good. I think he's incredible. But also, I think it's a great thing to have two really good rebounding, shot blocking, athletic centers. Like, there's so much value in that. And you kind of like pick and choose them. If one gets in foul trouble, they can come out. You don't need to run them 40 minutes a night. Because even with a team like the Celtics, you saw when KP got hurt, it's like crap. Like 37-year-old Al Horford is now playing 40 minutes per night. Whereas with the Hawks, if one of them gets hurt, they're like, that's fine. We can just go with the other guy. Okongwe's still super young. He can play a ton of minutes. And like they've got Bojan. Bojan's really fun. Or did they
Bogdan.
Bogdan? They Bogdan. Sorry.
No
I
worries.
apologize to our Eastern European fans. But it is a good team. I think it's fun. They obviously have Reece, who's an interesting piece. It could be that perfect 3-and-D small forward. We'll have to see with that one. But I think he was at least intriguing in summer league. Even if he doesn't like flash the upside of being like an instant, like insane rookie of the year, game breaking type player. I think he'll be good. So I do like the Hawks. They are in like my play-in tier, which is like pretty close right now. Um, I like them. I think they could get the seventh seed. And what the point I really wanted to make about like, the Hawks is like they made the right move getting rid of DeJounte because, like I said, these two guard teams, I just don't like them. They're not good on defense, and they're essentially just trying to do what the Knicks are doing right now. Like you have your awesome, like facilitating, scoring point guard who's not good on defense. Don't even play a shooting guard. Just like surround him with 3-and-D, small forward, power forwards, and a great rim protecting center, and your defense will be great. They will still hunt Trae Young as they still hunt Brunson, but the offense is gonna be great. The defense is still gonna be more than good enough. And like that's a really good way to construct a team. And a lot of teams are trying to do that right now. So I do like this approach a lot better from the Hawks. I just feel like that might be a year away still.
Yeah, and I think Risa Shea, I do expect like a solid rookie campaign. I'm a fan of Risa Shea. I think he'll end up being a great role player, but you know he's still like 19, so I don't know if that's gonna be like an immediate thing. But I think he'll prove to be a great fit on this team. They still have DeAndre Hunter, who I've never been a huge fan of, but like, hey, he puts up like 16 points on good shooting, so like can't really complain. Um, Love Bogdan. I think they have a pretty complete roster, and Trae Young, people forget is an elite player, and he's like 25 years old. Like
Yeah.
he is hitting his prime. I think he probably feels a bit disrespected in kind of the general
Yeah.
discussions around
Well,
him.
he is. He should feel disrespected because
He should.
he is very disrespected.
But yeah, he's a guy that I think feels he is far better than people give him credit for, and I think this might be the Trae Young season. I will be looking to draft him in fantasy if I can because I just have a feeling Trae Young will be different this year, especially with Dejounte Murray not in his way.
Yeah, his usage would be even higher. It could be like Luca levels of usage.
Same
So
draft class, they were traded for each other. These guys are like
yeah,
25 years old, like they
yeah,
are in their primes.
yeah. The most fair trade ever, as Atlanta fans love saying.
So fair. Yeah, no, kind of a about it.
Yeah, I like Atlanta. I have them at 11, so I've got them like oh sorry, not 11. That'd be really low. No, I think I have them at 9. Yeah, I misspoke there. So I've got them kind of as like cusp of playoffs into that play-in area. I have the Magic at 7. Kind of want to put the Hawks there now though, because I do think the Hawks do just have a more complete roster. Because like the Magic are interesting, where it's like Banchero and Franz are a really nice duo. And I do expect both of them to take another step this year. Banchero was an all-star last year. I expect that again. Franz will probably be in the discussion this year. But they are a team where it does feel like they do lack having a very complete roster. Like I still don't really know what's going on at the point guard position. Don't really know if Jonathan Isaac's going to play. Wendell Carter Jr. doesn't really stay healthy. I'm kind of talking myself out of the Magic right now. They were good last year, but feels like it could have been a little bit fluky. I don't know if they're going to be. Yeah, they were the fifth seed last year. I just don't know if their team is complete enough to do that again. I don't
That's
know. Give me a reason to justify my Magic at 7 before I drop them below the Hawks.
I mean, I have the Magic at 8. I had this inner dialogue myself, and it convinced me to put them below the Hawks. So
I'm doing it. Is there a reason? Like they have an upgraded point guard, right? Point guard is still like a complete mess for them, right?
no, and I mean Cole Anthony, who's not a true point guard, obviously. I mean, Markella is not signed to a team right now, which is kind of crazy in itself. But
I feel like
I
they
would
signed
say,
somebody. I have in my notes. They also signed KCP. So like that does make the roster like a little bit more complete, but like that's not it's not changing anybody's life. Like I think everyone just looks better when they play for the Nuggets. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's like kind of a forgetful signing in the regular season.
yeah, I think it moves the needle a tiny bit. Like they're a team that really struggles with shooting, but
Yeah.
ultimately, I don't think that's what it is. I mean, they were a super fun team, like you said. I think Paulo Franz is going to take some next steps. I think 45 wins is still great and realistic for them. Um, but yeah, like and Suggs, we should mention, like found a really nice role. Last year he fits great alongside Paolo and Franz, but They suck at shooting. It's kind of an incomplete roster, it feels. And I think they kind of had their kind of breakout season last year, and it's gonna kind of regress a tiny bit. Still be a great team, but um yeah, they're missing something. The offense still doesn't click, and like defense kind of is great, but can only get you so far, I think.
Yeah, I'm having a really big internal debate now. I'm gonna pull one more team in here. These are like the three teams I'm kind of struggling to place right now. I did kind of have them in their own tier. And whenever I do a tier, it kind of feels like these teams could be anywhere within it. The other team I'd pull in is like the Heat, because I was like, okay, I could drop the Magic a spot then, but I had like Magic 7, Heat 8, Hawks 9. So it's like if I bump the Hawks up to 7 and then I move the Magic down to 8, it's like Heat are then in the play-in, which I assume you have also. But I'm like,
Yeah,
they always get the eighth seed though. It's like I kind of want to have the Heat in the eighth seed. And even though things feel like they're kind of falling apart with Butler, where it's like they might trade him, he is older now, but they still have like Bam, who's like one of the best defensive centers in the league. They still have Hero, who's awesome.
Rozier.
Um, Rozier, that was like a really fun signing for them. He wasn't like great for them at the end of the season, but like, they traded for him like the last minute. So like that's like fairly interesting. They do have some older pieces like Lowry's old now. I don't even know if he's still on the team.
No, I think he's
Uh,
on the Sixers now or something.
oh yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, so it's like I don't totally know what's going on with like the roster like outside of, kind of those big four of like Terry, Hero, Butler, Bam. But
They have
that
Hyman.
still feels like a really good team though. Like it feels like that team is probably going to be in the playoffs unless something catastrophic happens.
Yeah, no, they were nearly indistinguishable, the Hawks, Magic, and Heat for me.
Right,
And
and like I feel like I can't take the Magic out though. Like the Magic were the fifth seed last year. They're young, they're ascending, potentially gonna have two All-Stars next year.
but for me, like after the Heat, then it's like a massive drop off.
Oh yeah. That's why it's like, yeah, when we once we get past the Heat, that's like every I essentially have that's just the trash tier. I do have the trash tier broken down to like upper trash and lower trash. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's like these are like the only teams with a chance of making the playoffs. The rest of the teams just have no shot at all. Maybe you can make an argument for one of them, but or maybe a dark horse. Who knows if they're in there? But
Because we're
I
at
don't know. I don't know now. I don't know how I'm going to order Magic, Hawks, Heat. I've like really put my brain in a pretzel right now.
It's tough, and I kind of just said I'm feeling the Hawks, so like fuck it, I'll put them 7, Magic 8, Heat 9. But the Heat might have the best roster in terms of talent. It's hard. I don't think there's a wrong answer, and I don't think we need to kick ourselves too much. Like
Yeah,
7, 8, 9, whatever.
I've decided I'm going to change nothing, and I'm just going to bank on Bankero and Franz being really good next year. So maybe that puts them above the Hawks. I think the Heat are going to be injured, but I think the defense and the experience will still put them over this new refreshed Hawks team. Gonna leave the Hawks at 9, but like I don't fucking know, man. It's like anything can happen, and honestly, this Heat team relies so heavily on Bam right now and his defense and his offense and his post passing and mid range. If anything happens to Bam, like their season is over. So that might kind of be what it is. Like if I think for sure two of these teams are going to sneak in. Something's going to happen to somebody that's going to open up a spot for potentially all three to get in. I think like it could be
Uh,
maybe there's an injury to like the Heat that like knocks them out, or like maybe there's like a big injury on like the Cavs or the Pacers or something that like melts their season, because like Halliburton has had injury struggles, and if he goes down, they're probably cooked. So we'll kind of see. I'm going to leave it as is, but I do think there's a world where they could all get in.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Heat are definitely in kind of a precarious spot but yeah, and the depth isn't great. I mean, they have Jaime Jaquez, who was kind of awesome.
Yeah, and like I know you're kind of bullish on their new rookie. I forget what his name is. He was kind
Kalel.
of as advertised in summer league, where it's like the offense was like pretty interesting, but the dude did not really care to guard the pick and roll, and like sets like the worst screens also. Like he's just like a terrible screen setter. They showed flashes, like the shooting was good. So who knows? There might be
Yeah,
something there.
Kalel Ware. He
Yes.
was a summer league standout. Another rookie I really loved was Tristan da Silva, who's on the Magic,
Yeah.
who's like a 6'9" shooter. So I think he's gonna actually be an instant contributor there for the Magic. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And we didn't mention one more thing I want to mention for the Magic too is like Isaac is still like as good as ever on defense. Like they don't play him much, but like he's kind of been healthy now for like what I think last year was essentially fully healthy, albeit playing 15 minutes a game. But If they can get that up to like, I don't know, like 25 minutes per game and just like play him at center, like that defense could be crazy good. And then like De Silva hits, all of a sudden we're looking at a pretty complete roster. They got KCP, good 3-and-D guy. Point guard is still kind of a mess, but I think they do get enough passing between Banchero and France where they make it work. Maybe they make a trade for a point guard somewhere and the team's all set. So whatever. I'm gonna leave it as is. Final.
I like it. I mean, I like Jalen Suggs. I think Cole Anthony maybe finally getting kind of the nod as the starting point guard could be awesome. Like they get enough playmaking out of Paolo and Franz to where Cole Anthony's like an awesome off the ball, scorer. So
Yeah.
it
And
could
like Suggs did also kind of come to his own where it's like the defense has always been there, but it was really there last year.
yeah,
And like his
totally.
fast break and his passing got a little bit better. So it's like maybe you just like roll out Suggs and just do like a defensive lineup where it's like, Suggs, KCP, Banchero, Franz, Wendell / Isaac. Like that's a pretty good team. So I don't know. We'll see. All right. I'm backing on the Magic. I'll keep them at 7.
Yeah. I think any of these teams could end up as high as like 5 or 6 if I'm a Bucks doomer obviously, but yeah, the Heat just weirdly are the team I'm the coldest on just because I think health and age, but Bam is
Yeah.
yeah, at their best, they're probably the most talented.
Yeah, for sure. But it does feel like the cliff is coming for Jimmy Butler, and it feels like the team is getting a little bit ragtag right now, to where they're kind of just like plug and playing like free agents and like vet minimum guys where they can. They lost Caleb Martin, like that was a loss. They lost Struce 2 years ago, so the team is kind of just like being held together with duct tape right now. So we'll see. The fall off could be coming.
Speaking of fall offs, at 10, I have the Hornets who are
Go trash tier, my favorite.
they're trash tier. I think,
They're upper trash tier though. Maybe there's a world where like somehow this starts clicking and they're better than expected.
and they could get the 10th seed and do something. LaMelo is just not healthy. But they have some pieces there that I think we both like, such as like Mark Williams. We hate Miles Bridges, but he's
Yeah.
a basketball player. So
Yeah. It's like Mark Williams also didn't play at all last year, but he's like super intriguing. He's like 7'1", just like sick screen setter defender. He was great as a rookie. So I'm a big fan of him. I do feel like they botched the 6th overall pick when they selected, who was it? Salon? Was that it?
Tijon's a lot.
Yeah, that was an odd pick. That was an odd pick. He was not mocked as a lottery guy, and they took him 6th, so that was a little bit weird. Don't let them, but like Brandon Miller, I do love. Like Brandon Miller, I think could be like,
We love Brandon Miller.
I don't know if he'll be like an all-star next year, but I think this is like the classic take where it's like he's a potential snub this year. He'll be on some people's long list for all-stars. And I bet he'll be like really in the conversation by his 3rd year. I expect a really good season from him. I just think he's an incredible player. Just like he's just amazing at everything. He is very much a young Paul George, where he's an amazing shooter, amazing ball handler, amazing defender, kind of a bad finisher. That's like always kind of like the surprising stat with Miller. But he was a rookie last year, so I think he can clean that up. And if he does, like the sky's the limit. I think he'll average 20 plus points per game next year. But we'll kind of see what the pecking order. Like we'll see how much LaMelo plays. We'll see if he's getting more touches and Bridges on that team. But I think they've got some guys, and the team is still very young. So I think at some point this team is going to come together and become a playoff team. But I don't know when it's going to be. And the Hornets have been a pretty desolate franchise for a while, so it may not ever happen. But it feels like they're going in the right direction. Like nailing the Brandon Miller pick was huge for them.
Yeah, no, I agree on all fronts. It just feels like LaMelo has to wear ankle braces. I mean that's the reoccurring injury. It's not thing
Always.
his leg, his knees.
Yeah, it's never even like it's never like anything career altering. Like he's as good as ever. Like it's not like he's like having like it's not like he's blowing out his ACL or like tearing a hamstring. Like it's just like sprained ankle, sprained ankle, sprained ankle.
So hopefully he's going to wear ankle braces and he's kind of rehab that properly.
Yeah.
And I think he could have a healthy season finally.
Yeah, and if he's healthy, he's an auto all-star. Like he's just an automatic, just like 24 points, probably like 9 assists, 7 rebounds, like always on triple double watch. Super exciting. Guess the other guys involved, like an offense with him and Brandon Miller would be so exciting. And then you have the two big lob threats in um Mark Williams and then Bridges. Like that would be a very exciting offense. Don't know how good the defense will be, but if Mark Williams can like hold it down enough, the team could be frisky. But there's a reason like we kind of have them like upper trash because the defense probably won't be there, and there's some pretty big questions about LaMelo actually staying healthy.
Yeah. Do you have them at 10, or did you just kind of put them in a tier of upper?
I I have them at 11. Who I have above them is the Raptors. I just like the roster a little bit better. I'm kind of bullish on them. Like I was last year. I've always been a big RJ Barrett guy, and he absolutely flourished for the Raptors last year. So I think this is like kind of a cheeky team that could sneak into playoffs because like you've got like quickly now in a big contract who's really interesting. Probably not worth the contract, but like that's the state of the NBA right now. But he's just like a really talented player. Barrett, I love. I think he's kind of guaranteed to be like 20 points per game, 7 rebounds next season, probably a couple of assists too, kind of a good passer. Barnes is awesome. He was an all-star last year. I expect that again this year. Hurdle, I really like at center. He's just, big bruiser down low, good rebounder, good defender. So I like what they're doing with this roster right now. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's coming together. The Knicks trade, I think, was beautiful for them. So I like this team. I think it's exciting. I think the defense should be good. And the offense might be a little gross at sometimes, but that's okay. I think it's still gonna be a fun team.
Yeah, I totally agree. I kind of had them right by the Hornets. They're not a super top heavy team, obviously, but like they have
Yeah.
like good NBA talent. The players you named, they have Bruce Brown on top of that, Kelly
Oh,
Olynyk.
they do have Bruce Brown. You're right. Yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot they still had him.
Yeah, Kelly
Yeah.
Olynyk isn't awful. They added Davion Mitchell, who was decent for
Good,
the.
good defender. Terrible offensive player, but good defender.
Uh,
They drafted Grady Dick. I forgot about him. Like maybe he'll come along. We didn't see a ton of him last year. He was a great shooter, kind of like a Tyler Hero prototype. So if that comes along, like that would be huge for them, especially because they are kind of looking to fill the hole at shooting guard right now with Gary Trent gone. So we'll see. We'll see.
yeah, I think a fun young team. I mean, they're they're not very top heavy. They don't have that superstar talent. I mean, Scotty Barnes is pretty damn good, but
Mhm.
at least they have like a really solid like quality 8-man rotation. I feel so.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the vibes are good. The vibes are good there. Don't know
yeah,
if they are in Charlotte.
I don't think so. I forget the head coach, but they have this like Serbian guy head coach that I vibe
Yeah.
around
Yeah,
there.
it was a mess.
But yeah, I could see them maybe sneaking into the play-in. I think that last spot is either them or the Hornets, barring
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
team.
Did you also have them at did you have them at 11 then, or did you have another team above the Raptors?
No, I had them at 11.
Okay,
Um,
that
we're
that
upper
leaves us
track
with
with Hornets.
yeah. Yeah, that leaves us with 4 teams left then between some order of. And I think this is probably where we get into like the trash tier where it's like, yeah, like maybe there's a world where like somehow like the Raptors or Hornets could be like a little bit frisky. With this tier, I think this is like officially like the no chance tier where it's like teams left are like Nets, Bulls, Wizards, Pistons. Um, I had the Pistons kind of like fringe, like almost in that like Raptors, Hornets tier. Because I don't think they're gonna be close to them record wise, but I'm like, at least they have a guy. Like the Raptors and Hornets both have guys. And I'm like, the Pistons at least have Cade, and I do like Cade. I think Cade is very talented. But outside him, like I think this roster is just like insanely raw and just continues to get more raw. Drafting guys like Holland project. They got one of the Thompson twins, big time project. Ivy, I think, is interesting, but he's still a little bit of a project himself. So I think, and they also have who's the center? The center is actually like very good for their team.
Yeah, Jalen Duren.
Yeah, Jalen Duren's like a really exciting player. So it's like they kind of like have the young pieces, and I think something's coming together. Whereas I think like these bottom 3 teams are still in like major pull it apart mode, try to get assets. Where the Pistons might be looking at their team and thinking like we might have enough assets now to like try to develop these guys, try to put together a decent season. Because I just don't think they're as bad as these other teams that really just don't have anybody who resembles a fringe all star like Cade.
I would say that the Bulls have at least Zach LaVine.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, I guess. I guess. I you do the Bulls higher.
Yeah, the Bulls were my 12th. I'm like, okay, they Josh Giddey, Zach LaVine,
You know what? You know what?
Kobe White.
I forgot they had Josh Giddey. I might put them higher. I forgot they made that trade.
Yeah, they have Kobe White, who's decent. They have
I love Kobe
Vucevic
White. Kobe
still. They still have
Kobe
Vucevic.
Kobe White was in my notes, but I forgot that they also had Giddey. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. No, I'm gonna bump them up. I'm gonna bump them above the Pistons. You sold me. I forgot they had Giddey. And we do disavow the Giddey stuff, but we've always been Giddey truthers, and I do think Giddey's very good. And I think this Bulls move is actually like a really nice fit for him. I love Kobe White. The Levine thing doesn't really do anything for me. I think that He just tends to be injured a lot, tends to be pretty inefficient, and frankly, I just don't think the Bulls want him on the team. But they do have him, and he'll probably get 20 points per game. They do still have Vucevic, who I also forgot about. I figured this Bulls team was in full on tank, but I guess they're not because you're right. They do still have big contracts in Levine and Vooch, and I think they extended Vooch. Um, so they might be classic Bulls where they're still just again not good enough to actually tank. So I think I'm with you there. I'm with you there. I'm going to put the Bulls above the Pistons, and the Pistons would be my next team.
That's how I had it. They lost DeMar, but essentially they still have kind of those pieces that keep them from tanking. We both like Bucelis. Obviously, it could be cool to see if he can
Super
contribute
exciting.
in any way. But yeah, my order went Bulls, then Pistons. Like you said, the Pistons do have some up and coming talent. Tobias Harris. I love Taylor Horton Tucker. Maybe they can kind of, they're going to get probably 10, 15 more wins than last year. I mean, for God's sake, they had like 14 wins last year, so it's only uphill. But um,
Yeah, but like I feel like we've also been saying that for like years now. Like I remember like 2 years ago, it's like the Pistons could be cheeky. I think this is the year they kind of like start to make waves, and it's like worst team in the league, worst team in the league, and they just like and they never get like quite good enough picks to like really get the guys to pull them out of um just like the the garbage zone that they exist in right now. But I don't know. They've been bad for long enough. I feel like figure it out. They suck. We're in like the shit zone right now. I just think they're a little less shitty than these other two teams.
I think they are a step above the Nets and the Wizards, who I kind of didn't know if I could differentiate who's the worst. I kind of said Wizards can be the worst, but I think the Nets are pretty.
We we can't agree on this because my issue is I agree that the Wizards are the worst, but I'm gonna switch it to Nets so then we can have a bet again.
So this time you're taking
Odd.
the Wizards. Oh wait,
No,
no,
no, no, no, no.
I think the Wizards are the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, I'll take the Nets then. We'll mix it up. We'll make that the bet for the year. I guess since there's not a whole lot to talk about with these teams, they're both very bad. They're both probably tanking. Let's make the case for our teams. So my case for the Nets, full on tank mode, obviously. They trade Mikal Bridges. They have most of their cap space going to Ben Simmons, who may not play basketball ever again. They're gonna be running a full-on Cam Thomas offense, which is gonna be he's probably gonna be really good in fantasy, but he's gonna be insanely inefficient. And the offense is gonna be very stagnant. And I don't even know who else on this team is gonna take shots.
Do they have their pick? That's a good question.
They do have their pick, I think, because I think they got their pick back in the McHale trade. I think they got that pick back from the Rockets, which essentially unlocked their tank, which is why they made the deal. So they do have their pick back, so they're incentivized.
I think they have the Knicks pick. It looks like
I believe they do have their own
they have
pick.
their own pick as well. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because I remember they said they weren't going to make the trade unless they can get their own pick back to effectively tank. Um, which kind of made sense why the Rockets then made the deal. So the only thing that was kind of like keeping me from making them like the worst team is like they still have Claxton. I feel like Claxton might make the defense good enough to scavenge them a couple of wins throughout the year. Whereas I think the Wizards will just be abysmal and insanely inefficient. But both teams are terrible. So I'll take the Nets because I don't even know if I can name players on the Nets right now beyond Ben Simmons, who probably doesn't count, Cam Thomas, and Claxton. Who else is on this team right now? I don't even know.
And actually, they have Cam Johnson. They have Bojan Bogdanovic. They have Dennis
Yeah,
Schroeder, Dorian
Bogdanovich
Finney-Smith.
washed. Cam Cam Johnson is absolutely going to get traded at some point.
Yeah.
Schroeder was like, he's kind of fun. He can be like the tank leader essentially. But I don't think that moves the needle for wins for this team considering what else is going on.
Noah
Um,
Clowney, not terrible. I think he's actually a young guy that has some potential as well.
no idea who that is. From Alabama though. Alabama's had a pretty good basketball program recently. They still have Dorian Finney-Smith, probably also going to get traded. Like I think they're going to tank even harder than like how they're tanking right now. Like halfway through the year, someone's going to offer them a first round pick for Cam Johnson and they'll take it. And I bet they'll try to get something for Dorian Finney-Smith too as well.
Yeah, they definitely have some very tradable assets. So um,
Yeah, and they really have like no young guys that they need to develop right now. So they're not gonna be like the Wizards where they're gonna be like, let's run these young guys, see what they can do. I think the Nets are gonna be going all out to get Cooper Flag this year, and I just think they've got the best situation to tank as hard as possible in the East.
for sure. But nowadays, it's like it doesn't matter how hard you tank. Like if you're in the bottom three, you have or
True.
five, you have kind of the same odds. Um,
Yeah. All right, give me your Wizards explanation.
I just think they're
So many great reasons.
younger and worse. Like I don't know. I truly think both teams are going to be 20 win teams
Maybe
at
less.
best. Um, yeah, I mean they got. I like Tyus Jones. He's gone, and now it's just like the Jordan Poole show. I
Yeah.
love Bub Carrington, their rookie, but
Yeah.
he's a rookie. Alex Sarr, I think, will have not a great rookie season. Kuzma is going to be completely checked out, probably traded.
Yeah. Yeah, possibly traded. It's gonna be one of like the most inefficient teams of all time because like we saw Sarr shooting in summer league. He's like a perpetual like 20 or 30% shooter from the floor. Maybe that gets cleaned up a little bit in the regular season, but like he's gonna be really inefficient. Kuzma will probably be their most efficient player, and he's still not very efficient. Poole is crazy inefficient.
They
They
added,
tra- they traded Avdia. Like Avdia's gone, and he was kind of interesting last year.
yeah, I
Don't know why
thought
they traded him.
those
I
two,
thought they should have kept him. I thought he was good.
but they have Brogdon, Valanciunas, Bilal Coulibaly's a young guy that maybe
Oh
will.
yeah, I forgot that they signed Val and got Brogdon in the trade. I do imagine that like Brogdon will probably be a trade chip potentially, but honestly at this point I don't know if he has trade value. I think he probably is just like a tank leader, similar to like Schroeder with the Nets. And Val is interesting as well, but I think I just don't know how much they're actually going to play him.
Right. Yeah, no. Those veteran players, they're probably
Yeah,
also trying to package them or just
probably.
find
And
out.
Val's on like an insanely cheap contract too. He's making like 10 or 12 million a year. There's going to be a team out there halfway through the season that needs a backup center that's going to trade for Val. I would be very surprised if Val ends the season with the Wizards.
Yeah, I was way more passionate last year about the Wizards not being the worst team. I think the Nets are the Wizards. I just think they're like equally shit. I saw something in the Wizards last year.
Right.
Thought they were going to be better than the Pistons.
Yeah, they clutched up. They clutched up. They got to 15 wins while the Pistons were stuck at 14. And I think they played each other at like the end of the season to essentially like determined who was going to be the worst team. And I think the Wizards beat them in that game, which absolutely broke my heart.
Like I was right, but at the same time, I was so wrong. I did not think they would be that abysmal. I really didn't. But
Yeah, but that was Jordan Poole's first year with the team, though, I think, right? So people were thinking that, Poole might do something there, and then like him and Kuzma might be slightly enticing, but no, but no.
alas, uh, should we run through the full standings or full power rankings? I guess.
Yes, yes. All right, yeah. My full rankings are Celtics, Knicks, Sixers, Bucks, Pacers, Cavs, Magic, Heat. That'd be like my top eight essentially. And then into like playing to be like Heat and Hawks. And then my bottom six are Raptors, Hornets, Bulls, and Pistons, Wizards, Nets. Let's go Pistons. Beat out the Wizards this year. Y'all couldn't do it last year, but I have faith.
Our lists were like pretty different. I mean, in sections they were the same, but uh, Celtics, Sixers, Pacers were my top three. Then Cavs, Knicks, Bucks, Hawks, Magic. That's the top eight. Heat at nine, Hornets at 10, and then Raptors, Bulls, Pistons, Nets, and the worst team, the Wizards.
Yeah, we'll have to revisit these lists like 2 weeks into the season and overreact. Kind of say which takes are good or bad. Cause like there's always like one team that's like a really bad team that has like a hot start. Like recently, like the Jazz did it recently. I think the Blazers had a year where they started off pretty hot and ended up being terrible. So one of these teams, like maybe like the Raptors or the Hornets, are going to be like the fourth seed like 2 weeks into the year, and that'll be very exciting to talk about. So we will revisit these lists soon.
I'm curious to see our list from last year. I don't know if it's worth pulling it up, but
Yeah, I don't know if I have mine. I don't think I do a good enough job of labeling these
I think
notes.
I have it in the description. So off season. Oh, shoot, it might be too much of a force.
Oh, I think I have mine. I think I just found it. Oh no, I don't. I don't. There's a different one. Oh wait,
No, I have it.
I have it, but I think last year we did a full NBA power rankings, so it wasn't broken out East and West.
Don't
God,
think.
this list is terrible.
I
Grizzlies at
have it here. I put it in the video.
okay. Is it just East or is it like full power rankings?
It's just the East.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, yeah, go for it.
So last year, I forget what even the correct standings were, but you had Celtics,
Okay.
Bucks, Heat, Sixers,
God.
Cavs, Knicks, Hawks, Pacers, Nets, Hornets, Magic, Bulls, Raptors, Pistons, Wizards.
Wizards really let me down. I don't know. That was a lot of words to throw at me, but I definitely heard
I don't think this means
I
much.
yeah, I heard myself put the Heat very high. That was definitely an L.
You had the Heat third. I mean, I had
Yeah.
them fourth.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much just coming off a finals run, so everyone was still pretty bullish on the Heat. And the Sixers at high, everyone with the Sixers high. It was just, and they were high until Embiid got hurt, so I stand by it. Were there any other terrible takes I had in that list? Did I have anyone else too high or too low?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the Magic surprised us all. You had them 11th. I had them 10th.
Yeah.
Ended up being fifth. So, um, no, I don't think so.
Well,
Mine was similar.
what was your list then? Or at least shout out like someone's you got right or wrong.
I had the Bucks one over the Celtics, so wrong about that. Um, Cavs, Heat, Sixers, Knicks, Pacers, Hawks. Ours were pretty similar. Hornets, Magic, Nets, Raptors, Bulls, and I was right that the Pistons were going to be worse than the Wizards. So
Yeah, I think our West lists were more interesting last year. Might be the case again this year because I was looking at mine and I was like, oh my God, I like the Grizzlies like third in like the West,
ooh,
which obviously fell apart. But yeah, I think partially due to Ja. I think they're gonna be good again this year. But we'll see. We'll talk more about the Western Conference probably in our next video. We'll power rank them next, which will be super interesting. Paul will also be in France likely by the time we get to that. So, Paul, if you want to like give a goodbye to our American fans and the American soil, because I think next time we do this, you'll probably be in Paris, right?
maybe, yeah. I leave in a week. I mean, maybe we do the Western Power ranking sometime this week. We'll talk after, but
Yeah, we could actually. We'll try to get it done for Paris. So if you want to save your tearful goodbyes, you can do so. But he'll be staying with the pod though. We have him under contract,
yeah,
so he's not
it's
going
not
anywhere.
goodbye. It is crazy to think we'll be 7 hours different, so it's going to be probably a bit tougher to coordinate the show. It's going to be tougher for me to watch games. I am like a night owl. I go to bed very late, so I don't think it's going to be too hard to see at least the earlier games. I'll probably still watch those. Um, and we'll coordinate when you
Yeah.
have the day off.
Yeah, or like weekend pods. They'll probably just be like Saturday or Sunday. That'll be the easiest way to do it. I record in the morning, you record in the afternoon. Perfect. Don't miss a beat. And fantasy will keep you locked in enough to where you'll know everything that's going on, even if you can't catch all the games.
But yeah, I'm moving to Paris. I am finally doing that. That's been a goal of mine for a long time, and just reconnecting with the culture. Don't know how long I'll be out there, um, but yeah, I'm telling myself it's going to be for a while. I'd like to kind of start my life out there, so that'll be cool. It'll be a new background. I know the fans love this background. I keep
Yeah,
switching the
iconic.
desk position, so my background is constantly changing. But
Yep. Yeah, you'll have to get some new artwork up there. But yeah, we're very excited for you. And thank you all again for tuning in to another spectacular episode of the Harold McBasketball Show. First of the season. We're super excited. So we're gonna hit the ground running here. Tons to talk about from the off season and just going into the regular season. So stay tuned, like and subscribe, and thank you all for watching.
God bless. Thank you all.
God bless fans.